For over 1,000 years, the kingdoms of men feared the night. Not because of monsters, not because of war, but because of something far older than both. Darkness itself. Long before the great kingdoms rose from the mountains, before castles touched the cloud, before kings ruled the earth, there existed a being powerful enough to make entire armies disappear without a single scream. The Shadow King, a ruler born from darkness itself. Parents terrified their children with stories about him. Travelers refused to journey after sunset. Entire villages locked their doors before nightfall. Because according to legend, the Shadow King could steal a person's soul simply by touching their shadow. And on the night of the blood moon, he almost destroyed the world. But the ancient kingdoms united against him. A war unlike any in history swallowed the earth for 7 days and 7 nights. The skies burned, mountains collapsed, rivers turned black. And when the final battle finally ended, the Shadow King vanished. The kingdom celebrated his death. Humanity believed darkness had been defeated forever, but darkness never dies. It waits, and 18 years later, it began to breathe again. Far beyond the northern mountains of Elias, hidden beneath a fortress forgotten by time, a woman screamed in pain as thunder shook the walls around her. Rain hammered the ancient castle like falling stones. The servants whispered nervously in the hallways. Even the soldiers avoided looking toward the lower chambers, because everyone inside the fortress knew the prophecy. The child born beneath the blood moon will either save the world or drown it in eternal darkness. And tonight, the blood moon had returned. Deep beneath the castle, candles flickered wildly as a hooded woman held a newborn child in trembling arms. The baby was silent, too silent, no crying, no movement, only stillness. Then suddenly, the child opened his eyes, silver, bright silver. At that exact moment, every candle inside the castle went out. Darkness swallowed the fortress. The soldiers froze, the servants screamed, and somewhere deep beneath the earth, something ancient awakened. The queen stared at the child in horror. She had seen those eyes before, in ancient paintings hidden beneath the castle, in forbidden books sealed away for centuries. The eyes of the Shadow King. Fear spread across the chamber like poison. The royal priest fell to his knees immediately. "The prophecy is true," he whispered. "The bloodline has returned." The queen stepped backward slowly, unable to breathe. For a moment she considered killing the child herself, ending the prophecy before it began. But when she reached toward him, the shadows inside the chamber moved. The darkness twisted violently across the walls like living smoke. And the queen realized something terrifying. The child was protecting himself. Thunder exploded outside. The baby stared silently into the darkness, watching, waiting. The queen turned toward her most loyal servant. "Take him away," she whispered shakily. Before sunrise, before dawn, a lone rider escaped the fortress through the northern gates. Rain poured endlessly from the sky. Wrapped tightly in black cloth, the newborn child remained silent as the horse raced through the mountains. The servant never looked back, because behind him, the castle bells had begun ringing, not in celebration, in warning. For hours, the rider crossed frozen forests and narrow cliffs while thunder echoed across the mountains. Then finally, just before sunrise, he reached a small village hidden deep within the wilderness. A quiet place untouched by kings and war. The rider climbed from his horse slowly. For several seconds, he stared at the child in silence. Then he placed the baby carefully inside a woven basket beside a wooden home. The child's silver eyes stared upward peacefully. The servant hesitated. Even now he could feel the darkness surrounding the baby, alive, watching. Then suddenly, the village dogs began barking wildly. Fear shot through the servant instantly. Without another word, he mounted his horse and disappeared into the fog before sunrise, leaving the child behind forever. The old woman found the child just after sunrise. At first, she believed someone had abandoned him because of poverty. But the moment she looked into his eye, she felt cold fear crawl through her body. Silver, not gray, not blue. Silver! The old woman had lived long enough to recognize signs the younger villagers ignored, and deep inside her heart, she knew this child carried something unnatural, but despite her fear, she could not leave him outside to die, and gave him a name, Elias. For many years, the village remained peaceful. But strange things followed the boy wherever he went. Animals avoided him, mirrors cracked around him, children claimed his shadow moved strangely at night. And no matter how hard Elias tried, the villagers never truly accepted him, because even as a child, darkness seemed to follow him everywhere. As Elias grew older, the nightmares became worse. Every night he dreamed of the same place, a giant black throne surrounded by endless darkness. And every night, someone sat waiting for him there, watching silently from the shadows. Elias could never see the figure clearly, only glowing silver eyes hidden within the darkness. Sometimes the figure spoke, sometimes it simply watched. But the dreams always ended the same way. The throne room would begin shaking violently. The shadows would spread across the floor like living creatures, and a deep voice would whisper from the darkness, "He is waking." Elias always woke up screaming, covered in sweat, heart racing, and every time he opened his eyes, his bedroom somehow felt darker than before, as if something invisible had followed him back from the dream. Elias did not yet understand the truth. He did not know why darkness whispered his name. He did not know why the villagers feared him. And he certainly did not know that somewhere far beyond the mountains, ancient forces had already begun searching for him, because the blood moon was returning once again, and with it, the beginning of the end. Winter arrived early that year. Cold winds swept through the mountain village for days without rest, covering the roads in thick gray fog. Even during daylight, the sky remained strangely dark. The villagers whispered nervously to one another. Something felt wrong. Birds disappeared from the forests. Dogs barked endlessly through the night. And every evening, the moon appeared slightly redder than before. Elias noticed it too, but unlike the others, the strange changes did not frighten him. Somewhere deep inside him, they felt familiar, as though the world itself was slowly waking from a long sleep. One night, Elias stood alone beside the frozen lake near the village. The water reflected the dark red moon perfectly. For several seconds, everything remained silent. Then suddenly, the reflection moved. Not the moon, his shadow. Elias froze instantly. Slowly, the shadow beneath him began stretching unnaturally across the frozen lake. Longer, darker, alive. And then, for the first time in his life, his shadow turned toward him. Elias stumbled backward in terror. The frozen lake cracked beneath his feet as the shadow continued moving on its own. Impossible. Shadows were not alive, yet this one moved like smoke crawling across the ice. The darkness slowly rose upward behind him, forming the outline of a massive human figure, tall, ancient, watching him silently. Elias could not breathe. The figure leaned closer. Its glowing silver eyes burned through the darkness like moonlight. Then finally, it spoke. "He is waking." The voice sounded deep enough to shake the earth itself. Elias fell backward onto the ice. Fear surged through his body. "What are you?" he whispered. The shadow stared at him silently for several seconds. Then the frozen lake exploded. Cracks spread violently across the ice beneath Elias as black smoke erupted from the water below. The giant shadow vanished instantly, and Elias barely escaped before the entire lake collapsed into darkness. Elias ran all the way back to the village. Snow whipped violently through the streets as he pushed open the door to his home. The old woman who raised him looked up immediately, and the moment she saw his face, her expression changed. "You saw it," she whispered. Elias froze. "You know about this?" The old woman remained silent for a long moment before slowly walking toward the fireplace. For years she had hidden the truth from him, praying the prophecy would never awaken. But now, it was too late. Without speaking, she reached beneath the floorboards and removed an old black cloth bundle Elias had never seen before. Inside was the necklace he had been born with, a strange black pendant covered in ancient silver markings. The moment Elias touched it, the fire inside the cabin suddenly darkened. The flames turned black. Fear filled the old woman's eyes. "They're coming," she whispered. Before Elias could speak again, the church bells began ringing outside. Not once, not twice, but continuously. Warning bells. The entire village had heard them. Someone was approaching. The ancient protectors of the kingdoms, hunters of darkness. Children grew silent as the riders entered the village square. Even the adults lowered their eyes, because the Light Order did not travel without reason. Their leader rode at the front of the formation atop a massive black horse. The ancient protectors of the kingdoms, hunters of darkness. Children grew silent as the riders entered the village. At once. Others began whispering prayers. The old woman stepped protectively beside him. "He is just a boy," she pleaded, but the commander ignored her completely. "For 18 years, he said coldly, we searched for the child born beneath the blood moon. His glowing sword slowly left its sheath, and now the darkness has finally revealed him." Elias felt panic rising inside him. Nothing made sense anymore. The prophecy, the nightmares, the living shadow. The villagers stared at him now as though he were a monster. Fear slowly became anger. One villager picked up a stone, then another. "You brought this curse upon us," someone shouted. The crowd erupted immediately. Elias backed away as stones struck the ground around him. The old woman screamed for them to stop, but fear had already consumed the village. Then suddenly, a stone struck Elias directly across the face. Everything went silent. For one brief second, the world stopped moving, and deep inside Elias, something ancient awakened. Darkness exploded outward from his body. The sky turned black instantly. The sun vanished. Screams filled the village square as living shadows burst across the ground like violent waves. The Light Order raised their glowing weapons. But the darkness swallowed them whole. People ran blindly through the black storm. The earth shook violently beneath the village, and in the center of the chaos, Elias stood motionless while shadows spiraled around him like living creatures. His silver eyes glowed brighter than ever before. Then, silence. The darkness slowly faded from the village. Snow drifted quietly through the ruined square. Several homes had collapsed. Torches burned weakly in the freezing wind. And the Light Order warriors were gone. Not dead. Gone. Only their shadows remained burned into the frozen ground like black scars. The villagers stared in horror. Some fell to their knees praying. Others fled immediately. No one dared look directly at Elias anymore, because now they truly believed the prophecy. The old woman approached him slowly through the silence. Fear and sadness filled her eyes. "You must leave," she whispered. "They will never stop hunting you now." Elias looked around the destroyed village. The only home he had ever known was gone. And deep inside him, the darkness was still alive, still watching, breathing, waiting. That night, beneath the blood moon, Elias disappeared into the forbidden wilderness beyond the mountains. And somewhere far away, something ancient smiled in the darkness. The kingdoms believed the Shadow King had died 1,000 years ago. But they were wrong. Darkness had survived, hidden, waiting patiently for the Blood Moon child to awaken. And now, the world would soon remember why shadows were once feared.